The following Conscious Consumer Network recording of a live broadcast is available to purchase in high definition at ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a CCN pledger. For €10 a month, you can have unlimited access to CCN high definition downloads at ethymarket.com. Ethymarket, the ethical marketplace for conscious consumers.
It's virtual.
Same here, thank you.
I've been doing quite a bit of research into the work that you've been doing. I've actually spoken to James as well, and very excited to have a session coming up with James in a couple of weeks.
I'm sure you'll enjoy that.
I'm sure I will, and I hope to be able to attend the next workshop and training that you do in Sydney as well, whether it's yourself or James. I do feel that this really is incredibly powerful work, and the timing is obviously perfect for this to be coming as publicly known as it is. But before we even start talking, for those who haven't seen an interview or haven't looked into your work before, I just wanted to clarify some terms, because misunderstanding or personal understanding of words and terms creates a lot of confusion with our language. So just the very words soul and spirit. Now, we use those words interchangeably, but you don't, very specifically. So if you could clarify those two to start off with, so we're all on the same page.
Okay, well, first off is when a little baby's born, in the cells of the baby have the holographic memories of all of the ancestors through time. Example with that is we're dealing with stolen generation, and where they can't associate with the children. So in this particular case, we find the cause of the effect is linked to the great-great-great-grandmother. Through the hologram of time, we call her through, and next minute the great-great-grandmother's crying her eyes out of the person on the table. They've just come and taken my children. I can't afford to love any more of my children because I don't know when to come and take the rest. So she shut down. That now came down the genetic line and was locked in to the vehicle. And within the vehicle are all the experiences. They're locked into the cells, which are the soul. The soul locks in the experiences in the physical world of reality. The soul is from the external world to the internal world. Whatever happens externally that we take in externally to internally, it gets locked into the soul, into the cells. Everything is alive. So those cells become a fractal to the hologram. What does a fractal do? A fractal reproduces itself for the hologram. So therefore, just say the trauma back there can't associate with the children. So that passes down the genetic line in its own dimension of time, affecting all the generations as it comes through the cells of all the generations, and they can't associate with the children till we unfold time and space, that dimension. That's locked into the cells, which is the soul. The soul is the experiences locked into the vehicle. Now let's look at the spirit. The spirit comes in at the moment of conception. He's linked to the heart. Science today says before it reaches the head, it reaches the heart. That's right, because it comes in with spirit first. The spirit is the essence of the being that's moving through time. It's eternal. It never ceases to be. It's continually moving through time and space and taking different vehicles and different experiences in those vehicles. It's a little bit like today, if you went from Sydney to Melbourne and your car broke down, you'd take another vehicle. The spirit is doing the same thing. It's just taking other vehicles to continue on its journey through time and space to where it needs to go. It can bring trauma through from the past. Now, we have doctors at Children's Hospital have been saying, we have no idea what's wrong with half the kids in here. Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with half the kids. In the first 7 years, the spirit brings through trauma of the past and sets it up. That's what's wrong with half of the kids. It's not being looked at.
Can I ask if another way of, I'm a visual person, so I need to have a visual image in my head.
Sure.
So the saying of we only live once, in one way, it could be true in the sense of Lisa. There is a soul for Lisa, for this incarnation.
That's correct. That's correct.
Every incarnation that the spirit, the essence that I am, has had, there is a soul for that, and the spirit.
That's correct.
And knows stories of every soul.
That's correct. If we were to use hypnosis, which in the early days, I used to do a lot of mind magic and similar things to hypnosis. And what we did there was we'd send people into the past, parallel, and into the future. And they'd be predicting in the next 2 weeks what's going to happen. Everything could come on spot on at 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, exactly as they said, because it's all happened before, nothing new under the sun. So what takes place is that the spirit being the essence of the being comes through time. But with hypnosis, I can send you back in time and I can access your past soul. Now, if I access the past soul, what takes place is that, just say you're in Germany and you know no German in this lifetime. You'd be speaking fluently to me in German, telling me all about your family, your wife, your kids, how you lived, what you did. It's there. It's the physical world of reality that you're in that moment of time.
But it's the memories of the soul. It's the incarnation.
They're the souls have the memories. They have the experiences locked into them. The spirit itself coming through time can also be traumatized. What we find with a lot of people is if you had a trauma around your death, and just say it was 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute before death in a past, that trauma is still locked in. And what happens is because that dimension has never done 360 degrees, it is still active. It will set itself up again somewhere usually within the first 7 years. And then all of a sudden that child is living a trauma, not even knowing why it's living the trauma. Mm. You know, I had a really good case, a little 4-year-old boy in Melbourne, and he used to wake up screaming at night. He in a cold sweat, jerking, jumping on the bed sometimes in his sleep. So the parents would sleep with him to keep him pacified. So when we got to Melbourne, I surrogated him into the mother. And I went straight back into England on a one-way track driving a train. Another train's coming the other way and he's panicking trying to stop the train, head-on collision. He's killed. His 4-year-old son was killed on the train, a pile of other little kids. When he reached 4 years old, it triggered off the sleeper and he's trying to stop the train in his sleep. When we unfolded time and space and took out the trauma, he's now sleeping nice and peaceful at night.
Can you explain what you mean by because that dimension hasn't travelled 360 degrees?
Okay, well, let's look at the dimension of a lifetime dimension. The day you're born to the day you die is a dimension of time known as a lifetime. Mm-hmm. Every single lifetime you've ever had are separate, but they're within another dimension, which is a dimension of the spirit through time, taking on different vehicles. Only when something has done 360 degrees does it represent completion. Now, the interesting thing is, you know, you get these men of, you know, secret societies at a very high level. They're taught the maths and geometry of this universe, but they're not taught some of the vital keys that entrap them. And they realise that 360 degrees is completion. Nothing can be completed until it's done 360 degrees. Only then is completed. How does a cell multiply? A cell's multiply at the right angle, at the 7, which is 90 degrees. So once it's done 360 degrees, it now changes at right angles. It creates a new time track at right angles. What was on the time track going forward is no more. What's on the time track at right angle is the new time track, which changes time.
Okay. I'm getting visuals of the Mayan calendar cogs, you know, all sort of interlocking and turning a bigger wheel.
Which they are, which is what takes place. It reminds me sometimes the old watches. You pull the back off the old watches. You look at all the cogs. Some are going really fast. Some are going slow. Some don't even notice them moving. And that's a bit what I like. It's dimensions within dimensions within dimensions of cycles.
Okay, speaking of dimensions.
Sure.
You've said that this is our dimension. This is the dimension of humanity.
This Earth where it is and where it's located in time and space, it is a dimension within itself. This dimension itself, because the distance from the sun and the speed of light multiplied by that distance, it gives it the spin of the electron around the nucleus, which creates molecular, which is visible light on the spectrum. Everything we see is visible light. But wait, if we go above the visible light, you go into infrared, radio waves, TV waves, gamma trigger plant technology, orbiting technology. There's all these different frequencies above and below. There's the ultraviolet, the gamma rays, the X-rays, the cosmic photons, which is actually above, and below is the infrared frequencies. They're all different dimensions. If we go out and we look into astronomy, in the stars, what do we see? Through visible light. We see whole galaxies that exist through visible light, because that's what we're looking through, the visible light spectrum. But if all of a sudden we look through the infrared spectrum, we see whole galaxies that exist on the infrared spectrum. Now, if you go to all the other spectrums, you'll find galaxies on them too. It is endless. We're in this dimension, a molecular world.
Oh my God, you say so much in so few words. It's extraordinary. I'm trying to keep up with you. If this is in fact our dimension, and if, as you've stated, all of the indigenous cultures right around the planet used to understand law and understand nature and understand how this works, how did our dimension become manipulated or even invaded, if you want to go to that extreme? If the knowledge was already there, if it was understood, and if this is our dimension, this is our game, how did we become susceptible and opened up to all of this manipulation in the first place?
Interesting. You know, I had an Aboriginal race come through. I was called in to clear Rottnest Island, and this was going back a few years ago, and we cleared like tens of thousands of spirits that were trapped on that island because it was an island prison in Western Australia. But the time I was about to leave, an interesting thing happened, and the woman's house I was staying at, her daughter, they lived 10 stories up in a high-rise apartment, and the phone collapsed, the TV stopped, the computer, everything crashed at the same time I was leaving to do the island. You know, when that happens, I look at that and say, okay, someone's trying to make contact here. We've got an issue. So we went back a couple of days later, and we surrogate the unit to find what we were dealing with. And a couple of interesting things happened. One of them, an Aboriginal race came through that stated back in the past when we brought them through, they said 2,000 years ago an alien race arrived and interbred with us. We want you to change that so it can never happen in the future. So we unfolded time and space and we changed that from ever occurring. Then all of a sudden, the second thing that happened was, whoa, the surrogate on the table said, I see the thing that shut down the TV, the communication, the phone, everything. I said, what does it look like? It doesn't have form. It's just pure energy. So I called it through and said, why do you invade the unit, shut down the phone, the TV, the computer? And what came through was, we didn't. I says, yes, you did. I said, you've come through, you've invaded this place, you've shut down the phone, the TV, computer. And then first thing they said was, we were here first. And all of a sudden I realised, oh my God, you know, every 40 inches is a ley line. And here it is 10 stories up. This unit has come up into their dimension. And it wanted it out of their dimension. Can you understand that? A ley line up there. When you fly in a plane, have a look. Why are the clouds always on a level? And you go, there's another cloud level. They're on separate dimensions that we don't see. Well, this was a dimension that this high rise 10 stories up had come up into this dimension, and these beings said, we want it out of our dimension. So my comment was, well, how do we do that? And they said, move the ley line. So we focused on the ley line, we moved out over a golf course, and you actually felt the energy in the room changed as we did it. Then we brought them through, said, is that satisfactory? Yes, thank you. And they were right, they were happy. We have many different dimensions with beings on them.
But does that mean that our dimension wasn't necessarily invaded, but we went outside of ours?
No. Here's our dimension, which is our world.
Yeah.
Now, if we go back in time, and I didn't realise this until I was in New York, where I saw the verification of what had come through. And in New York, at the Geological Museum, I saw an article there where they said scientists were aware that at one time the moon bounced off the Earth. And I thought, whoa, because I've had 17 people in mass trauma go back 1 million years ago. And there was 11 of them off planet aboard massive UFOs waiting and watching as this planet's coming in towards the Earth, or the moon was coming in towards the Earth. The others were stuck here and couldn't get off. And there was a massive collision. I call it the billiard ball effect, because what it did then, it moved this Earth into a new time-space location. Every one of those people, and none of them knew each other, they were from all around the country. I'd say, look down your hands and feet, and I want you to describe the body to me. Whoa! Webbed fingers, webbed toes, a reptilian appearance. This used to be a reptilian world. Now, when the billiard ball effect took place, we moved to a new time-space location, we moved into a new dimension. Now, within this dimension, many different species arrived here and wanted to take over this particular dimension, see what the minerals were worth, see what was worth mining. And they did. I mean, in the old biblical part, it talks the Nephilim here, the giants upon the earth, they're doing the mining. And down the track, they left. I mean, it talks about after 144,000 years, the Nephilim uprising went back to where they came. Well, it's really interesting they use that number. Mm-hmm. Because when you start to understand the universe and its maths and geometry, there's a mathematical formula for how this universe works and how consciousness works. And to access what we're accessing, to stay in control of the game, we're actually using this maths. I'm not going to go into it on air because it can be complex, yet it's simple. But if people play around with it, it can be dangerous if people don't know what they're doing with it. So what happens is it goes 1 to the square, 1 to the square. The square is the base of a pyramidal structure over a beam. And at the base of that, it goes from the top to a cause, to an action, to a reaction, to an effect, which is Fibonacci mathematics. The past and the present sets up the future. The past and present sets up the future. At exactly 3 cycles of time down that pyramidal structure over the beam is 144. 1 to the square. The base of the pyramid itself is a square. That's all in the invisible world. Then it drops into Platonic geometry by squaring itself, 1 to the square to the cube. This is universal maths. Once it hits the cube, it now crystallizes through Platonic geometry into a tectone, isohedron, doctrine, octahedron, where it crystallizes in the cells of a being. Now it's in the physical world of reality. Now you've locked in the thought to the thought form, which is now becoming alive in you. It becomes a fractal to the hologram, and the fractals reproduce themselves for the cycles of the future. You're stuck in time. There's all the prisoners stuck in time in the prison system. I don't know why I keep doing the same thing over and over, Your Honour, because you're stuck in time. So it's understanding how this. So we get back to the 1 to the square to the cube. So in the old biblical part, it says, and after 144,000 years of Nephilim uprising, it tells me after 1 to the square, the invisible world, to the visible world, and at the 3 dimensions of time, the past, the present, the future, a conjunction takes place. And they went back to where they came, back to their dimension. Now, the keys to soul's been saved in our own religion says, the key to soul has been saved 144,000. Once more, 1 to the square to the cube, and at the past, present, and future end of the cycle is going to be a new conjunction as we move into a new cycle of time, which we're in now.
Okay, so to recap for a second.
Yeah.
1 million years ago.
Yeah.
This was a planet and a dimension that was reptilian.
Yeah, that's correct.
The moon comes along and bounces into it, throws us into a different dimension.
The moon was one of the moons. When you go to Sumerian texts, they talk about the moon being linked to one of the planets out there, and it was on a trajectory collision course with the Earth itself. The beings here were aware they were off planet at the time. But when they came back, we've moved to a new dimension. We've moved to a new time-space location. So therefore, they are no longer visible in our visible world. But this was their world, but they're invisible to us because we're new molecular beings. But we weren't molecular beings until Adam, the first Adama, and the Eve mated in this time-space location, that they created a new molecular mortal being known as man in this dimension. This is why animals can see in other dimensions and we can't.
You're gonna have to give me a minute. Oh, okay. I get that, I think. Okay, so just to step back for a second.
Sure.
Back to spirit and soul.
Yeah.
What happens to the soul then after the lifetime is finished?
Well, the interesting about the soul is that the soul can be captured. Your experiences have been captured by other forces in other dimensions. See, the whole idea in the end, at the end of the cycle, is that they need to reharvest the vehicles. In other words, they need to repossess the vehicles.
I realise that is what's going on, though. But what's supposed to happen to it? What organically? What should happen to the soul?
The vehicle itself is going to rot into the ground and move on, but the memory of all the experiences are there. Nothing ever is lost. Mm-hmm. But they can be actually trapped. They can be captured. I mean, science today, they're talking about that with the new implant chips that they can. Well, I'm not the new ones. I'm talking about 25 years old. The Soul Catcher example. It can hold 10 million megabytes. It can be downloaded by your experiences and programmed into another person that can now relive your experiences.
Yeah, they keep telling us in movies. There's a new movie that just came out too called Chappie, and that's about that very thing, about transferring consciousness into.
Well, they've been doing it for 25 years. I've got all the research here from over 25 years ago when the Soul Catcher, as it was called, implant, and it can hold 10 million megabytes. Where are they up to today? 25 years later, can't even imagine it because it'd be so advanced where they're at today and what they can do.
Okay. It's scary. How much of what holographic kinetics is right now has evolved from what you understand of law, L-O-R-E,
yep,
and what has just been the evolution of the work itself?
Look, as an Aboriginal descendant, I was aware as a young child of a number of things. My mother sat me down and wanted to know how I knew things were happening because I was telling the things before they happened. And I thought everybody remembered the past, but obviously they didn't. There are a lot of children out there today that do, and I know that they've been given electric shock treatment for remembering things they claim don't exist, which is ludicrous. So what happened is our own culture was fully aware of the dimensions of time. I mean, one of the things about the Aboriginal culture is they never surrendered. They laid down because they knew the cycle of time would come back again. They realised everything comes back on itself and you can't escape it. They knew all the knowledge would come back again, which it is. So most of the knowledge, and one thing is I find you've got to give accreditation to where something is actually coming from. And this was 60,000 years of knowledge. This is how they lived. They didn't violate law because they lived by law. They realised your word was your word. If you broke law, then you'd be stuck here for another 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 years through the cycles of time because you can't escape the cycles. But when you align yourself with law, then the universe aligns itself with you and unfolds. It's like in nature. When you acknowledge the spirit of the trees, the spirit of the animals, they will acknowledge you and you can communicate to them. And this is how Aboriginal culture lived for 60,000 years. White society comes along and, well, here's an example too. Look, millions and millions of your taxpayers' money went into royal commissions, deaths in custody report, the rights of Indigenous Australia, the rights of mental health. And out of all those inquiries, out of every single inquiry that came out of it, the elders state, we need to heal the spirit. And they're saying, we're giving you spirituality in the form of religion. What more do you want? Had nothing to do with religion. The spirit has been traumatised through time. When they did stolen generation, what they did, they traumatised the spirit by taking away the child. They traumatised the mother's spirit, the child's spirit, and the community spirit. That then allowed other forces to enter and manipulate the soul.
And it's still going on.
That's correct.
You've stated that that nature in the universe is always seeking balance. That
That's correct.
what we call karma is us experiencing our creation from both the perpetrator and the giver and the receiver. If
It's
that's the case,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's about what it is man is responsible for his thought, his word, his deed, and his actions. Whatever you've done to harm another, you must experience, and you cannot escape the cycles of time. So whatever you did in the past to another, it's going to unfold back onto you for you to experience. The universe doesn't care about time. It says, well, if you want to hang on to this for 1 million years, that's fine. If you want to hang on for 1 second, that's fine. It's up to you, but you will not escape the cycles. If you want to go to war, mutilate and kill, the universe says that's fine, but you must learn what it's like to be mutilated and killed. Only then will you understand the dimension you created, which is affecting all the other dimensions. And only then can we have balance.
So where I'm having a disconnect is for that to play out. That will play out endlessly. That will play out forever if something isn't done. And yet we're talking about the end of a cycle.
We're talking about two things here. We're talking about your personal time track with your spirit through time and what you chose to create that has to come in balance. The universe doesn't care if you keep coming back time after time. Groundhog dog.
Cycle after cycle.
Keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. But when you've finally dealt with your stuff and you finally start to evolve through consciousness to another level as the integrated parts of you are in balance, then we can move into another dimension. We're always evolving. You know, if you go back in time, there was first the firmament, the gases, the liquid, the rocks, the plankton, the plant life, insect life, animal life, and human life. And we were evolving through the octaves of each one of those cycles. This is how the old chemists, the old alchemy from the past, could turn the previous two metals into gold by knowing the cycles before, past and present sets up the future, and they can make gold. So you go through all the octaves, you look at all the animals, the insects. The insect donates its vehicle to be devoured by another insect, and it in turn gets devoured by another, or a bird. Everything's getting devoured. It's all energy getting devoured in the soul. But the memories of that little spirit is evolving, and it's learned about all the experiences of life as it evolves up into the next level and into the next level. We eventually will move into another level where you couldn't take man from where he is today into the next level. It's a bit like put a ladder against a house and get up on the top of the ladder. You're going to see the big picture. But go to the bottom of the ladder and you only see what's at the bottom of the ladder, the small picture. Everything is one step at a time up the ladder. If you try to take 2 steps up that ladder before your time, then you can have a mental breakdown or another spiritual breakthrough on that ladder. Because what it is everything must progress at its own pace in its own time. So towards the end of the cycle, those that are ready to move on will be able to evolve and move on. Those that aren't, that's fine. You know, nothing changes. Everything's happened before. It's going to happen again the next cycle of time.
I didn't think we were going to get to this just yet, but we're here, so let's have a look. If you've been able to talk to people and get information on the future, and you talk about this cycle of time being between 2013 and 2023, what is it we're evolving into? Where are we going? What is this next dimension, this next cycle, what is it, and what does it look like? What does it mean to us? Are we going to wake up one morning and it's all different and we won't have any memory? Or are we going to wake up one morning and it's just same old, but
Neither.
there'll be subtle changes? What?
Neither.
Okay.
When your dimension is complete, I can guarantee one thing. And that is that if you're born, you're going to die. Now, what you did on your time track in that period of time and what you brought back into balance determines where you'll be going to the next cycle. If it's a Groundhog Day, back to do it all again, that's fine. If not, it's only a moment of time. Everything's only a dimension of time, that's all. And when you're ready, then you'll move in. I have a feeling I know what it's going to be like in the next future because we're already doing it. And I go back in Aboriginal culture and I could see how they had the ability by working with nature and being aligned with nature that they could actually make their bodies lighter and they could run 100 miles a day by making their body lighter. They could step in a Burra circle, step in and out of time and move through time. There's some of the old paintings in some of the caves there they've got where they've been to the stars and know the star system because they've been out of body into the stars. one of the things I learned growing up with mother always used to say to me, if you want anything in life, don't expect it from anybody. You have to learn to manifest. Now, I didn't even know what the word manifest meant at the time, but I've since learned to manifest. I believe in the new future of the cycle we're going into, our thoughts will just manifest our reality so fast.
I think many of us are already seeing a speeding up of that.
Yeah. And that's just preparing for where it's going to be going to in the future. But you've also got the opposite side, and that is that right now, as an equal opposite to all things, as you know, there's a forward, there's a backwards, there's a left, there's a right, there's a high, there's a low. Well, there's an internal world to an external world, which is your spirit, internal or external. The external world and the internal world is the soul, which are things you're taking on. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the physical world, there's a physical world that we can see, but there's an invisible world that we can't see. The two dimensions are now merging right now like this, and things from the invisible world are coming through to this world. You know, governments are aware, I believe, of because I know the American military did exercises, and in those exercises, they're teaching their soldiers and their police, headshot, heart shot. You can't afford to wound these things because they're 10 to 20 times more powerful than the physical body when they come through, and they just keep coming. These are very powerful beings that are coming through. When people, especially with ice is one of the major one these things are coming through. But when people take drugs and get drunk, they're entering into other dimensions. And there's a whole range of things out there in other dimensions that are coming through human bodies. You know, we bring these things up on the table, and you know, some of the things we've seen coming up, virtually hissing and spitting and, you know, shape-shifting at you and cursing you and carrying on, till we remove them. If they don't want to go, there's a bit of a battle and a half goes. But the new ones that are coming through, I believe, are linked to the ice. And they're very big, they're very powerful, but they're half animal, half human in what's coming through.
I mean, just this alone opens up so many things and brings up so many questions. I mean, when you say that the dimensions are melding like this,
they're merging. The invisible and visible merge. Yes.
This is a normal, natural part of the end of the cycle, or
That's
is this an art of? Okay, is this also being manipulated through things like CERN and whatever to open up?
Well, let's get on to CERN, and this is the interesting one. If I create a wormhole into your dimension, in other words, if you create an altered reality, you create a wormhole into another dimension, things are coming in that dimension to your dimension. When I see CERN creating these massive wormholes in the ionosphere, what's it bringing through from other dimensions?
I don't even think they know anymore.
I don't think they do either. I think the manipulation, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, but it's been manipulated by the forces to open a wormhole, let things through.
With the intention to prevent the end of the cycle, or to ensure that it's repeated? What do you think?
What we need to understand this is the harvest. This is the time of the harvest. So what does that tell me? They need as many souls trapped in the game of the future so they can repossess the vehicles. It's a little bit like when you go into these secret societies and you go through initiations and rituals. You enter these beings' game.
Yeah.
Now, law. He who enters the game of another is subject to the laws of the game. He who's born under the dimension of another is governed by the laws of that dimension. So when you enter these games by going into these rituals to these beings, you're in their game. Now you're subject to the laws of their game. They can take over. They can manipulate you. And they do at a very high level. Now what takes place is while they're being manipulated at a high level, these people whose bodies are being manipulated, they're going to justify this as their actions. And those at the highest level that see these things, well, they're going to be packing it because purely and simply they've got no control over them. The difference is you've got to know how to control the game and bring them into your game and control the game. In my early days, I was picked up and thrown 30 feet through the air by an invisible force. I landed on the couch. I said, okay, I'll get the hint. I'll wait. I didn't realise what I'd done till 20 years later through my research, and I finally realised that the guy was doing automatic writing. I walked up to touch him on the shoulder. I entered its game and it just threw me out of the game. That's how powerful these beings are. You know, I rarely get attacked. But I had an episode a few months ago. The guy came in with his mother. He was 26 and he sliced both his wrists. I went to work on him, and as I walked up, I got massive psychic hit. Whoa, I walked outside to drink of water, and this is a big boy. Went back in again, bang, a second hit. Another drink of water, and I went 0.0. I said, okay, Spirit, what's happening? And I listened. My Spirit said, he made an agreement with the entity to take him out. You have to enter the entity's game to get to him. Well, hang on, my house, my rules, you're in my game, you're coming out. No, I went in, locked on the guy's eyes, went in, and I took out the entity. But that's how subtle it was. Just knowingness of the fact that he'd made an agreement with the entity sliced both his wrists, he wanted the body. Because if he gets the guy to kill himself, he gets the soul, he gets the vehicle in the next cycle. He has the born rights to it.
Okay. I need to get back a little bit, because I said that when you talked about this, it opened up a lot of questions, because you mentioned a bunch of things in there.
Sure.
One was drugs, because you talked about ice. Now, okay, we've got a resurgence in the popularity of ayahuasca journeys. We've got the re-emergence of the understanding of the medicinal and holistic benefits of cannabis. Yep. Plus, there's an awful lot of recreational users. Now, from what I understand, you know, throughout history with indigenous tribes, clans, mobs, communities, there was always one shaman, one medicine man or woman who would use these ayahuasca or some other form of stimulant, and it was because they could handle going into those dimensions. They could handle dealing with those beings. It wasn't the whole community didn't sit around and do it.
That's correct.
But now we've got everyone sort of wanting to go on these journeys. Now, go on.
Look, I've had quite a number of my clients who have come that have been on ayahuasca, and there's a massive entity attached to the ayahuasca itself. And what it does also, it's a real cunning one, this one, because it tends to shut off the neuron communications, like between the consciousness and the spirit. It shuts it down, and it moves in with its own programming of how much of an enlightened being and everything else. Its aim also is it wants the vehicle. All these beings that get in, they've got one agenda. They want your vehicle for the future. And the only way they can get it is to get you to enter their game. It is so subtly, it's so powerful what's taking place out there, and people think it's a great game, but you start listening to the people that have done it for a while and talking to them, and you pick there's something missing in their being. There's something missing. You know, it's like they're in another dimension. Although they're in this dimension, it's like they're in another dimension. Whatever's manipulating is actually manipulating them. You know, you take a lot of the old tribes, what they did is yes, they opened up wormholes. But I mean, let's go back in time also. And a lot of these old tribes around the world, you know, they also had war. A lot of the old tribes used to rip out the heart and eat the heart because that was capturing the spirit. So, you know, there's many things that man at low levels in the past has done, but today, you know, people think, oh, well, because it's a natural. Hang on, arsenic's natural too. You're going to eat it?
But are you saying that, okay, a couple of things. Every drug, the way you talk about it, makes it sound like it's designed specifically to a being. Or is it to a dimension?
Everything. Watch this. The ayahuasca is a plant. Is it alive?
Yeah.
Therefore, it has its own spirit.
Okay, I get you.
What's the intent of its spirit when you take it on? Everything and the intent to everything in this universe is about survival, reproducing and growing stronger through time so it can take over. Everything. And that also goes for medication.
Oh, yeah, the pharmaceuticals, yeah.
Somebody created them. What was the intent in it? And when you put it in your system, what's it doing? It's got an intelligence of its own. It's growing through time. Like the sleeping tablets, I'm going to keep you awake till you feed me. Don't give you a rest. The antidepressants, I'm going to make you depressed until you feed me. Don't give you a break. Every drug is the same thing because it's alive. Everything is seeking survival. We just have to look at it a whole different way to understand, okay, what's really going on here? How do we deal with it? And how do we make changes to those dimensions that are affecting man's dimension? We go back to the question you had before about the world. This world is in its own dimension of time. In its own dimension of time, it takes 365 days to go around the cycle of the sun. But there's 365 cycles in that called a day. And in that day, there's 24 cycles, each hour cycle within that. There's cycles within cycles within cycles. And then the sun itself is moving around a cycle within our galaxy. Everything is continuous but similar. We just have to take this to another level to understand. And even the interdimensional stuff, we don't go looking at the interdimensional stuff, looking for it. What we look at is, what dimension did this thing come in? How long has it been on the time track? You go back thousands and thousands of years ago when man was doing rituals. Once he held those rituals back in time, he let beings into his field in their own dimension of time. Now just say one of those dimensions was 3,600 Earth years, was one cycle to them. Mm-hmm. That means every lifetime they are going to try and trigger off the dimension to allow them to come through and once more learn to have more control about this dimension. They're learning through you. They're evolving using you. You're the host of what you let in. This is about taking back our dimension. This earth is a dimension of its own. It is our dimension. What we've found is, as we have occultism on one side, and occultism calling the dark forces and utilising them for your own benefit, but there's a price to pay. They want the soul. Once you've called them in, they've got you. You're in their game. That's it. But the universe always have what I call the safeguard mechanism. And the safeguard mechanism for balance is law. It's a bit like if you take a negative electron and you take a positive electron, and you hit a negative electron with a positive electron, it will create a positron. And that'll move the positron out of this dimension into the past where it no longer exists. So law is a balance for the universe. And the thing is, it won't let people from the dark side utilise it and get hold of it. It won't give it to them. This is why an Aboriginal culture living by law. And it was known as the clever men at that top level that understood this law would pass over a lifetime his father to son. And you know, these clever men, they knew all about the universe. It's a lifetime of learning the knowledge.
You're going to have a lot of people out there wondering, but can I still have the odd joint and protect myself and be okay? Or like any time you alter your physiology or your consciousness in any way,
you through your free will, you give power to these beings that are external to you to come into your world and experience your world. And when they come into this dimension, there's not enough bodies to go around. They don't want to leave. This is why our mental health systems, you know, got so many people in it today, and our mental health system's so screwed up, it has no idea how to deal with these beings, or it doesn't even recognise other dimensions.
No. I've had a couple of encounters with what would be considered crazy people who live on the street.
Yeah.
And they've looked you square in the eye and said something incredibly profound, and you know that there's nothing crazy about you. It's just,
yeah, I mean, it's who's talking out of them.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And the question here is, what dimension did that come in from? You know, too many people are focusing on these external beings and into the fear game of external beings. This is our dimension. We have a right to this dimension. We have a right to deal with anything that comes into this dimension with a negative approach to this dimension. The moment it comes into your field, you have a right to deal with anything that comes into your field, providing you didn't go into its field. There's a difference. If you enter its game, you're subject to the laws of its game until we unfold time and space back to the original cause and effect of the agreement where you enter its game, loop time and put you outside time, therefore can no longer come in on your time track anymore.
Okay, let's get to this the beings thing. If you're dealing with a Draco or a winged serpent or a reptilian,
Yeah.
and you've cleared them
Yeah.
from the individual,
Yeah.
are they going? Where are they? Are they just going into some reptilian waiting room?
No,
and waiting for the next. Where are they?
I told you in the beginning, and in the beginning, what happens is a mathematical formula for the universe. And it's not about you going to their game, but entrapping them into our game. I teach my students how to control the game. I teach them maths and geometry to use to this. And when they apply, it works every time. Now, what you do is you trap them into your game. Now I read them rights. And they have two choices. Entrapment through time in another dimension that I will create, where they can't get to another, or freedom as an observer to the game, to observe the game and to grow and to evolve. Everything has a right to its freedom, but doesn't have a right to invade another. If it accepts the terms and conditions, then we go in on another level, and just for a bit of insurance, we close off all the wormholes to this dimension, and he's now an observer to the game. We can observe, he can grow. You see, the most important thing, what people don't realise under this universe, is the mathematical formula. Number one is the law of intent. Number two is duality. When two come together, they create the three, which is the triangle, the law of agreement. The most powerful thing is the law of agreement. Why do you think everything out there today they're trying to get you to agree to? Sign an agreement, because that traps you through time for eternity into that agreement.
Your consent.
Until you unfold time and space, you see? Then the four is the base of your pyramidal structure, and the base of pyramidal structure is the invisible world. The pyramidal structure over you is all invisible. Hand me a thought, as I say to the professors and the scientists, hand me a thought. Oh, you can't, can you? It's invisible. Now stop and have a look. Have a look at our world today. Have a look at the jets, the ships, the skyscrapers, the planes. Look around the office at the computers. There was not one thing that was created that wasn't just a thought. What can man achieve if you didn't have the restrictions on him about his thought and manifesting? It takes you a whole new level of thinking.
Okay. I know I'm all over the place because you're going,
That's all right.
Every question ends up with answers that just go everywhere. So another question is, I've seen some of the stories that people have told after having a session, and they talk about being a tree or being an animal. When you first experience this dimension on this planet, do you come in as part of the plant life, the flora and the flora, and work your way up to a human, or can you actually experience this dimension as a human first go around?
I believe we start in the firmament, the gases, the liquid, the rocks, the plankton, the plant life, insect life, animal life, and the human life. We're evolving, and next will be another life form. I believe we keep evolving, and we're learning through those evolving stages that we go through as a spirit. We know that every single thing that's alive, whether it be a blade of grass, it's alive. Whether it be a tree, it's alive, it has a spirit. And the thing is that when you learn to acknowledge it and acknowledge the spirit in that particular plant, you can actually bring it through and have a talking out of someone on the table. And I do that by talking to someone at the table. I do that by what's known as control zone other than a non-control zone. If it's a non-control zone, you bring things into you, you have no idea what could jump into you. But if you're using someone on the table and you're controlling the game by understanding the proper maths and geometry, then you control what comes through, whether it be another spirit, whether it be a draconian, no matter what it is, you control it because you're in control of this game in this reality. It's now part of your reality, or it's, in other words, it was the client itself, it was a co-created part of their reality. It's now a co-created part of your reality. Is the client's reality is in your reality, and you're dealing with that reality. So you can deal with anything that comes through. That's why I call control zone, because uncontrolled zone is where things can jump into you because there's no control in what's taking place. And then once they're in, you've got a battle and a half to get them out.
Okay, there's a question that just came up in the chat room, which is also something I wanted to ask you. How do I put this? Okay, so we know that, most of us know here, that those who are in positions of power on this planet are heavily controlled.
That's correct.
Right? Can we, with this knowledge, surrogate them and clear them without their knowledge or consent?
No. Now there's two questions. There's two questions. You cannot invade the space of another. What's this? Remember I told you before about the man who came in who tried slicing his wrists. I walked up to work on him because his mother bought him. He didn't come with his own intent. He didn't have the first law nor the second law. I worked up to work on him and bang, I got hit psychically by this force. What came through was he made an agreement with the entity to take him out. I had to enter the entity's game to get to him. In other words, I had no permission from him to work on him. If you work on someone without permission, you enter their game and you violate law.
But can you not get permission from the spirit?
No, because if it's a child under 14, I can get parents' permission and work on the child. But once you turn 14, you have free will of choice in this molecular mortal world. I cannot invade your game without your permission. In other words, you, through your intent and free will, have to come and say, listen, I've got something big attached to you through rituals. I'd like it cleared. No problems at all. We can clear it.
So what about in the genetic, and this is where I found it really exciting in terms of having the most impact. I heard you talk about through the genetic line.
Yeah.
Let's go back, to great-great-grandfather having a trauma.
Yep.
And then that by the time it's down to this generation, there are thousands of people on the planet who have been affected. So you only have to clear it from one on this level, and it has an effect right through the whole.
What I'm doing is I'm using the body on the table to access the spirit of the ancestor 5-6 generations back that created it. He created that dimension. All those born under him are governed by the laws of that dimension. Once I get him back in time to change it for his future, time will loop itself, morphogenic resonance takes place, and it'll clear all the generations under him.
So there are people out there who are shifting, clearing, that they have no idea
That's
what
correct.
the cause is, why it's happening, why it's changing. They're just feeling better. And does that in itself could mean that some of these people in these positions of power are being positively affected just through that alone, does it not?
You're talking about people in power. People in power, through their free will choice, joined those secret societies, and the payoff was position, power, and money. They chose to enter that game. That was the dimension they entered. They're now governed by the laws of that dimension until they decide they don't want to be in that dimension anymore, and they come. If we gave them a session, we could unfold time and space back to the cause effect of the agreement of entrapment that they made back in time. We could then loop time and put them outside time where that changes the future cycle. You need their permission. You cannot invade this game of another. That violates law, and there are consequences to that law of violation. Remember, this is a molecular mortal world. This is a world of free will choice. It's the ego that has the free will choice.
Yeah.
It's the soul that stores the memories of the experiences it chooses to have. The soul then, through time, it has to be enfolded back into time, purely simply bring back into balance. But meanwhile, the spirit can be traumatised because you delayed him on the journey. And then, of course, there's other life forms in there. They're all putting their 2 bobs worth in because they all want to control the vehicle. They want the vehicle for the future.
So where do we go from here then? They're not going to come willingly. So where do we go?
No. The other thing I look at here is, we can create our own dimension of reality without being in someone else's reality. I see too many people out there focus on the physical world of reality, which is someone else's reality. I see too many people entering this game of reality of others, and where like attracts like of similarity, as you'll get the ganja people here, you get the cocaine people over here, you get the alcoholic people over here. They're all coming together But when they're coming together, what happens is this now becomes another dimension. This becomes a cluster. Now, the fellow up here on the cluster level up here, he's manipulating all these people of similarity, and they're all feeding each other, which is really feeding him at another level. You know, we did this when we went to a community up north, and we had 13 kids on suicide watch. So I worked on the kids first off, and then I put my sister on the table and said, I want to scan the community, find out what's taking all the kids out, because it was a regular occurrence, you see, attempted suicides. And we found this thing like a big jellyfish with tentacles. And as they drink alcohol, this thing latched onto them. It'll work down the tentacles, gets them to commit suicide, absorbs the soul. So we brought through the thousands of spirits that have been killed by this thing over time. We brought them through independently, collectively on their own separate dimensions of time. We unfolded time and space at the time of the drinking. We changed the dimension of the past and present for their future. Then we released all the spirits. So the thing going, we shrunk to nothing. We locked what was left in a little dimension. 14 months later, I go back to the same community police come to me. And they say, you know, before you came, we're averaging 3 attempted suicides a week. We have not had one attempted suicide in over 14 months since you cleared our community because we took out the cluster. I was in America on the East Coast, and I was introduced to an American Indian, and his house was virtually full of timber, and outside was all timber everywhere in the backyard, and he's making carvings. And in his office, I saw this carving of this timber octopus being with eyes all around it. And I looked at it, and I recognised it straight away. Well, I said, who did that? He said, I did. I said, well, apart from myself and my team, I don't know anybody else that knows what that is. I said, what is it? He said, it's a cluster. I said, I'll be darned. The American Indians know what it is as well. Mm. This is another dimension up, you see. So there's so many things out there that we've got to understand. And this is why when you get like attracts like, it's these clusters coming together, these entities coming together to another level that they're growing, more powerful, more stronger in their own dimension.
I'm going to change tracks again completely.
Sure.
You made, both yourself and James, I've heard say, that when people are on the table and they have an experience with an angel, that each and every time, not even just a percentage of the time, but each and every time behind the image of this angel is a winged serpent. So
that's
the
correct.
question is, do angels, as what they have been portrayed, actually exist, or are they just a fairy tale?
Well, was Satan not a fallen angel?
Which means a serpent.
That's correct. A winged serpent. Well, I mean, they're masters of illusion, these fellas. Remember, they've been hoodwinking our world for thousands of years. You know, religion itself is one of the biggest con artists, let's just say, mankind that's been conning man for a long time. I mean...
No argument for me.
Yeah. You know, people are afraid to look outside the square because of the fear that's been drummed into them. I looked at Aboriginal communities, and as I said, my great-grandmother was taken away at the age of 8, found horse shackles at 14, sold to a drover, and died at 15, giving birth to my grandmother. My grandmother brought up a cattle station, very well educated by the church. Nice to see her walking around all the days with rosary beads in her hand and Mary on the wall and Jesus on the wall. And, you know, I was aware of what was taking place with the church and the manipulation control. I go into communities today and they're telling me we was evil before Jesus came. No, you weren't. You had law. You didn't violate this. I mean, the church is totally, it has deprogrammed and reprogrammed the soul. That was the game. Every country they went into, go back and have a look. They went in, they did the same thing to Ireland. They took away all the children in Ireland, traumatised them, you know, to try and program their religious beliefs. They did the same thing up in Canada. The church was coming in, taking the kids. So, you know, a case where mothers drowning the kids in the cold water to stop the white people who were linked to the church come and taking the babies. It was all about trauma right through time. And the stolen generation is the same. Yeah, it's very powerful, the programming, but it shows you how easy it is to program the soul of a being.
I ask that both for others and for myself. I had an experience several years ago where an angel came to me and approached me from the front, but then very quickly was behind me and wrapped its wings around me.
Certainly.
And the feeling was a very beautiful feeling of one of love and protection. But yeah, now it makes you wonder.
Look, let's go back in the early days. In my early days, this is one thing that really got me onto what is reality. And I used to do mind magic. I was doing a party. I put 5 people in alternate states. I threw a hat on the floor and told them it was a pot plant. Now the pot plant, the most beautiful tree you've ever seen. Watch it grow, watch it. It's growing, it's growing. The most beautiful oranges. Look at the oranges on that tree. Wow, look at that, beautiful oranges. I want you all to go and pick an orange off the tree. They all 5 of them picked the orange off the tree, peeled it, ate it. It was the juiciest orange they've ever had in their entire life. I made it so they remember it. So then at night they're coming out and people are saying, what's it like to eat something that didn't exist? I say, don't be stupid. I know what I ate. Now, normally that would be classified as an illusion. But for those 5 people, that was reality. The illusion were those that weren't in reality. My question from that day onwards was, what is reality? We must understand what's going on in the mind of a being, which is their reality, to understand where it's coming from, so we can assist them to change that reality and get back to a fair and just reality. But what is reality? This is why there's so many people out there that are into, if it happened to you, it must have happened to me. So their mind has taken on the assumptions and beliefs. What we assume, we believe, and what we believe is. It is that simple. That then becomes our reality.
So there is both an objective and a subjective reality or truth.
Whatever we believe it to be, it is. That's the most important part, is people out there that do create illusions and are delusionally creating, there's illusions, there's delusions, there's a whole range of different factors out there. It's not the fact it's happening. The reality is, where did the dimension come from that created this delusion or illusion? It had to come from somewhere. And when you start doing holographic kinetics, we're finding the cause of where something originated by going to the spirit. It knows how, where, when, and why anything was ever created. Next minute, you're back there reliving. We tell you nothing. It's your time track, not ours. You're back there and you can see what took place and how it came. And when you start working with thousands, like I would have done, I'd say in 40, 50 years, over 100,000 people in that period of time. I mean, present is 750 students from 31 countries around the world we've got now. And in dealing with these issues with people, it takes you to look at what is reality, and when you see where these things are coming from. It's like one of the complex ones we found was people classified as altars. Excuse me 1 second. As an altar. The interesting thing I found with altars we've worked on is that they go back to birth. I've got the wrong parents. So what happens is they might have had alcoholics or drug addict parents or violent parents, and they don't want to be here. They then create an altered reality. The word I don't want to be here means that is an invitation for something that does. I wish I was dead. That's an invitation for something that wants to live. I wish I had a friend. That's an invitation for a little invisible friend to appear. That's how subtle it is. So I don't want to be here. They create an altered reality. This reality now gets taken over by other beings. Other beings are running this dimension.
When you look at all the subtle ways in which we can be taken over, that doesn't really leave anybody on the planet that would not be in some way interfered with. Everybody at some point has said, okay, I'm done, I've had enough. Or reached out, sought for help.
How many of those people out there that have at times put out and how many of all of a sudden one day through sheer determinism realise that's it, I've had enough and I want to make a change?
Is it that simple to then clear yourself?
It is. Well, that's the start of a change.
Start of it. There's just one question that's come up, and then we're going to take a couple of minute break. So you'll have 2 minutes to go and get a drink or whatever you need. And the question is, can a HK practitioner fully protect themselves?
One of the things you've got to learn is the keys of what takes place. We apply you the keys. We give you the keys. When you understand the keys, you see the simplicity of how this universe really works. And in this universe, when you apply these keys, then you're in control. But if you're a HK practitioner, and I had one recently come up and, he got with his mates and he thought it'd be all right to smoke a bit of dope. Anyway, he's got major stuff running him and he comes up and he's demanding a session, I said, no, we're here teaching a class, thank you very much. You go to one of the students and you get yourself cleared from them. Now, if you're going to be stupid enough after being told and being warned, then I have no pity for stupidity. As far as I'm concerned, you can keep them for a while, learn a lesson. I don't have time for stupidity. If you're going to come along and do this course, don't come along and think it's a joke and think that once you get cleared, you can go and smoke a bit of dope afterwards, because I'll tell you what will take your place. Your spirit's clearing you and we move you out to another octave, in other words, into another level of that matrix. We move you out. Your spirit wants to be clear. Your spirit's bringing you here to assist it to be cleared. And then you go, slap it in the face and decide that you know better and a little bit of dope won't hurt, and you go back and open the doors. Because you've moved out to the next level, bigger, more powerful forces are going to come in now and be manipulating you, because the little fellas failed. Now the bigger boys are taking over. At each level, you've got to earn your freedom. You've got to earn your freedom.
That you cannot, like, no one can even have it. I'm not talking about hardcore addiction, but are you saying that you can't even enjoy a joint every now and then without, or is there a way of doing that and protecting yourself?
No, there's not.
No, there's not. Okay.
You open the door to other dimensions, you do it through free will choice. There's many beings out there waiting to get in. It's that simple.
I think you just crushed a few people.
I think I might have too. I'm just saying it the way it is. We're working on people all the time that, think a little bit of this won't hurt, a little bit of that doesn't hurt. And yet at the same time, look, I've had some of my students come to me that were on heaps of stuff. And once we've cleared them up, the desire to touch the stuff isn't there. Remember, you got the program running inside there with these life forms saying, feed me, I need to be fed. They're manipulating you. But once you take away them and they're not going to be fed, and they don't want the desire to be fed anymore isn't there, then you're back in control.
Okay, we're going to have a 2-minute break.
Sure.
3-minute break, possibly.
No problem.
And we'll be back very, very shortly.
Thank you.
If you really had to make a difference on a large scale with minimal resources, how would you go about it? Have you ever dared to dream of doing that which seems impossible? On a planet steeped with corruption and destruction, the question beckons, how do we change it? Media has a far-reaching impact on people and has been used to manipulate humanity into our current destructive patterns. In order to affect people into moving into constructive patterns of behavior, we need to construct a new paradigm of media. Conscious Consumer Network has been created with the explicit intention of giving the amazing truth-seeking, solutions-orientated, alternative media a place to fully realize their true potential, with a cutting-edge, high-tech professional media platform being made available to use at no cost to the broadcaster. In turn, some of the greatest freedom-seeking hearts and souls of our time have realized the true potential of what has been created and have come together to provide their insight and inspiration on CCN. Conscious Consumer Network has become a unique, interactive information and educational network which provides a free-to-view, live-stream, ultra-high-definition channel to the world and features 25 live shows a week and growing with the addition of multiple language broadcasts. CCN has features comparable with mainstream media, such as being able to pause and rewind broadcasts whilst being live streamed. Catch up on this or previous broadcasts, now available from CCN High Definition Downloads. You can now purchase a high definition download of your favorite CCN show from ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a monthly pledger. This can be done with a monthly pledge of €10, which will allow you unlimited access to CCN's high definition downloads, which hosts a back catalogue of over 250 shows which have been aired since the launch of CCN on the 1st of January 2015. In order to keep CCN free of corporate sponsorship and advertising, CCN has launched the Pledge 300 campaign. This is a realistic goal with the hopes of securing a minimum of 300 people who will each pledge €10 a month. With this number, we can continue to grow and operate and potentially expand into a second foreign language channel. Without it, CCN will simply not be able to function without succumbing to corporate sponsorship and advertising. Help keep alternative media in the hands of the people. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
Dave, you need your headphones, yeah.
Okay, makes it easier.
Yeah. Well, this question of substances seems to have really caused an issue in the chat room.
I fear it might.
Yeah. Okay, one of the questions is tobacco. Now, I personally smoke tobacco. I smoke organic tobacco.
Yeah, well, no, that's better. That's better.
As do some of the people in the chat room, it seems. So we're asking about that, raw or organic tobacco, or the odd glass of beer or wine or whatever.
Okay. Sure. Well, okay, let's get the tobacco. Yeah, organic tobacco, yeah, it doesn't create an altered reality. But let's take normal tobacco, your normal cigarettes. You got nearly 235 separate frequencies in it. Mm. Every frequency is a life form. That means every one of those life forms is going to seek to hook you in for its own survival. This is why it's harder for people to get off cigarettes than anything.
Yeah. Because
all the separate frequencies, which are life forms, which are all seeking to be fed. When you take the organic tobacco, then you've just got on to organic tobacco. I look at smoking as being, I go back to nature. Okay. Look at the river coming down the mountain. If I was all of a sudden to become a beaver and block off the river coming down the mountain, it's going to find another way, isn't it? And we don't know where it's going to go. To me, smoking is like a nervous outlet. It's like the river coming down the mountain. If you block it off, then you do not know where it's going to go. You don't know what it's going to create. It has to find another outlet. Sometimes that outlet is the better outlet than the other outlets it could create.
Okay, I got you.
When you're down the track, find that you don't need it and you want to take out the dimension that created it, then it's one of those things you can do. But the mainstream stuff, they've deliberately put in so many chemicals, and each chemical's alive, and each chemical needs to survive.
What about the people who are currently on pharmaceuticals whose lives depend on it, what they're taking? How do they... Because I heard you say that when someone was dealing with something, you were able to actually go in, if this is a physical condition or a physical frequency that they're carrying at that moment, and you go in and you match that frequency, pull it out of the system.
What takes place here is to understand that everything is alive. Now, I can't turn around and say, don't take your medication, because I'm not authorised to say that at all. And if you're taking it for a reason, and that medication could be very beneficial to you in whatever it is you're taking it for. But there's other medication that I find, especially when it comes to mental health medications, that lowers your resistance. It makes you dumb and numb. And when you're dumb and numb, your defences are down. And when your defences are down, you're now vulnerable for invasion by other forces. Now, they can't throw your body around and talk out of you because you're dumbed and numbed. But when you start coming off it, then they get active, and then they say, oh, you're worse. you need a stronger medication. It's a catch-22 situation that's going on because, to me, they're misdiagnosing people. These things can be cleared. I've been to high-security prisons for mentally ill people classified as mentally insane, and because of Aboriginal descendant, they have the right to their own cultural beliefs and practices. So therefore, they've called me into a number of places in a few states where I've gone in, and we take the voices. One of them there, she panicked and put out for help when a certain thing happened. And in came the brother, the sister, and the old man because she panicked and put out for help. It was a valid agreement. I bring the spirits up one at a time. First off, I bring the brother up. I deal with his trauma, why he hadn't moved on, why he's still earthbound. I change his time and space, change his trauma, I move him on, bring the sister up, bring the father up. In the end, after dealing with their trauma and moving them on, no more voices. She's now been released because she's not mentally insane anymore. You know, the amount of people that go to the psychiatrists and the doctors and say, I got voices in my head. They say, don't be stupid, these don't exist. Well, I'll tell you now, if you've got other beings in there, they're going to exist, like it or not. And that's misdiagnosing people that have problems that are coming to you and you're telling them something of your own belief system because you don't understand it. You're misdiagnosing them.
When it comes to healing, I mean, I even know personally people who have had, say, asthma healed through one session of HK. But what about acute situations? If somebody's in that moment and having an acute...
One of the important things is we don't go looking for symptoms to cure. We don't heal anybody. We don't cure anybody. What do? We assist you and your spirit, so your spirit can show you the cause of where that came from. Then you and your spirit through integration can unfold time and space in that dimension, and it can put you outside time.
The result is a healing, though, physical healing.
The result is the person, their spirit, heal themselves. We do nothing.
But have people healed themselves then? I'll reword it. Have people healed themselves in an acute situation?
Oh, yes. Many occasions we've had, that take place with people.
So a HK practitioner in an emergency room could be invaluable.
It could be invaluable in many areas. Look, heart transplants for a start. Now, I've had 5 clients of heart transplants, and my comment is, do you know who owned the heart? No. Would you mind if I brought the spirit own the heart through? They look at me. I said, it's okay, I know what I'm doing. And I call through the spirit own the heart they've just put in. It's crying its eyes out on the table because it's leaving the wife and the kids, and I go back to the accident and had I changed time so it doesn't accident in the future. I then go into the man on the table and say, okay, what happened to your heart? Why do you have to know the heart? And tell them what happened. I unfold time and space. I change that for the future. So both in the future keep their hearts. Thank you very much. They're just some of the areas. I hate to see what happens when someone puts a pig's heart in you.
Yeah. Okay.
Because that's what they're talking to doing, you see. And, well, what would the outcome of that one be?
Well, actually, my own father was one of the first people in the world to have heart valve replacement surgery back in the early 60s. And he had to go to the Mayo Clinic in the States for that. And I believe at the time they were making them out of pig tissue.
Yeah. But it's not the heart itself. It's only it's only a valve. When people have a whole heart put in, that heart's taken from another and the spirit's connected to that heart. So you get change of personality.
Well, yeah. There are many people in my family who say that my father, the man who went to the States to have that operation, is not the same man who came back.
That's
and
correct.
he died twice or 3 times on the table itself during the surgery. And they just say the two people were not the same.
And that brings me to another interesting area, and that is one of the heart surgeons I'm talking to. He says, when we take the heart out and put another heart in, he said, in that period of time, he said, the person dies. He said, you have to massage the heart, get it going again. But when they come back, he says, this is what's got me fascinated. Some say, I saw Jesus, I saw God, I saw an angel, I saw Satan, I saw my aunt, I saw my uncle, I saw my mother, I saw my brother. He says,
you get what you expect, don't you?
They all see different things. He says, why is that? And I said, well, that's interesting. I said, we surrogate Egyptian mummy in when we're overseas. And I said, the mummy, I said, what do you do? I rule. I said, who do you rule? I rule my servants, my slaves that died and came through with me. Okay, thank you. And what else do you do? I move in outer dimensions. But when I come back to this dimension, I rule. Now think about it for a moment. The servants and slaves, they died knowing that they're going to go through with their master to be ruled. He knows he's dying, his intent is he's going to rule. What we've found is whatever your intent is at that moment of time is exactly what you create till you really come back.
Yeah, I noticed that when you were looking at people like, what's his name? There's a couple of really well-known psychics, the I Speak to Dead People kind of guys. They've got their own shows, you know.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who they're talking to, who's coming through, whether it's a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Christian, a Jew, it doesn't make any difference. The message from the other side is stick with your scripture.
You know?
Stick with the religion. It's the path. How can they all be saying from the other side that their path is the right path?
That's right. And it's the intent of the person of what we're finding is actually coming through on that. Whatever your intent is, that is what's going to happen. But the reality is there comes a time when you've got to come back and bring back into balance your imbalances. So you can be born again, but this time you can be born to the parents you need to teach you the lesson. Or you come back and experiences that are going to teach you what you need to learn by what you created in the past. This is why Aboriginal culture at times, they used to say they're into revenge killing. No, they're not. They're doing you a favour. You know, if you kill somebody, then the family line up, you'd be put out there and they'd all throw a spear at you. If they hit you, they hit you. If they killed you, they killed you. They didn't. Because it was dealt with now. Because they knew you couldn't escape the cycles of time. They knew in 1,000 years' time, it's going to have to come back and you could be stuck for another 1,000 years in this dimension. So if it was dealt with now, it's finished. That's it. Forgotten.
Okay, question. Can our incarnations themselves, you said the right parents. So what part of us is choosing the who to come in with, the when to come in, the circumstances to come in, and can that be manipulated?
No, I don't believe it can be manipulated. To the degree, I don't believe we choose. I believe the universe itself is a consciousness, and what it needs is balance. So what it'll do is that if you were violent to the kids in your past, then you're going to come back to parents who will be violent to you. How else will you understand the dimension you created for another, which is really having an effect upon the rest of the dimension that we live in? Remember, they're all wheels inside wheels, but they're all part of the bigger game of life that we're playing. So there always has to be this balance that's going to take place there.
But the universe could present us with a dozen different scenarios of families to that would fulfill that for us. Is it at some level, do we get to go, okay, well, that one?
No. It's like, example, again, I find that when a child is born to a violent parent, and we were speaking before about the altered reality, we go back to that altered reality and we find at that time, you know, I've got the wrong parents. Well, you haven't got the wrong parents, you've got the right parents. I then send them back in time to show them what they did that they had to come back to these parents to experience. The moment they see what they did to another back in time, only then does 360 degrees take place in that dimension as it loops upon itself. Only then can it change at right angles and change time and replace the new time track.
Okay. This sort of delves into the new age idea a little bit, where we've got what they call soul groups and soul families and things like that. I've started to think that perhaps we incarnate continually along the same genetic line.
We can, but let me throw a little spanner into the works here, because I mean, many a time I've actually had what I learned. I think this is where it's going, and all of a sudden, Spirit will throw a spanner in the works to teach me not to get set in any form or any way. So I've got a woman comes to me and shares my horse. It's human. It knows everything I'm saying, understands everything, but it's got a problem. I don't know what it is. Can we work on the horse? So I surrogate the horse in. And the first thing the horse said was, my brother bashed me and I died. I said, I beg your pardon. My brother bashed me and I died. I said, Will. Who am I talking to? Spirit of the horse. Are you telling me you were human before you came back as a horse? Yes. Why do you come back as a horse? Because they're big and strong and no one will bash me. Well, that made sense to me. It chose to come back as a horse. Now, I always thought we moved forward through time and we upgraded, but it shows that we can make the choice to really be in any. And when you're at that animal level, what happens when the animal donates its vehicle, then there's your lunch. In other words, Aboriginal culture, you put out through the dream time. Put out the kangaroo spirit donates itself. The next day, there's your kangaroo. The soul is in fight or flight, but he's donated himself. He now moves to a higher octave. In other words, he might decide to come back as an eagle. He might decide to come back. And with Aboriginal culture, remember that every community has its own totem. What's that mean? Just say you're the totem, the turtle's the totem. That means that in this community, when the elders die and someone dies, they enter into the turtle and they share the body of the turtle with the spirit of the turtle to watch over their community until they're ready to move on. So each community will have their totem. Now, if you came in and you killed the turtle, that used to be war because you just killed the ancestors.
But that's a temporary, you make it sound like a temporary thing until they're ready to move on.
That's correct. That's a temporary thing till they're ready to move on. But once they move on then they come back into the vehicle that they need.
But this guy that came back as a horse, was he still associated with the same family though?
No.
No.
This is what I'm saying. You know, we don't know. There are cases. I mean, here's an example. Let's take your blue bloods. The blue bloods have to keep incarnating in the same bloodline, so the draconian run at the very highest level retains its memory through time. If it didn't retain memory in the same bloodline, it will drop in amnesia like all the rest of us. So some families keep reincarnating down that bloodline. Others go off, take a different vehicle. You often hear people, when we go back in time, I want a different family. Okay, no trouble. So they create a different family for the future.
Because there's something about that genetic.
Just say, here's the example. Okay, watch this again. Just say you're born to violent alcoholics and drug addict parents. And we go back in time, and this is what we do with altars. I take them back in time to show them why they had to choose these people, what they did. Only then is a complete 360 degrees. So therefore, you've got violent alcoholic parents. Now you look at that, and we change time what you did, and you realise I don't need violent alcoholic parents anymore. So what are you going to do? You're not going to create the same parents for the future. You create loving, caring parents for the future, which is you're born to a whole different family. You understand? In the next cycle of time.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this cycle. We didn't get into it too much earlier. Because when I said to you, are we going to wake up one morning and it's all different, or are we going to wake up one morning and it's subtle changes? You said neither.
You'll have to wake up and find out, won't you?
Have you got any idea what this is going to look like? And how bad is it going to get between now and 2023?
I can only hypothetical.
I know you don't.
And I don't want to do that because until I'm there, I won't really know myself. But from what I'm understanding of the structure and how it all works is that, you know, we are responsible for our thought, word, deed, and actions and where we are on the timeline. Where we're evolving to the degree we're ready to get out of the game and we're accepting this, then we can move into another dimension, which is a new dimension of reality. Otherwise, if we're stuck in our stuff and we haven't cleared, then Groundhog Day, it's going to start again. You know, everything's happening now. Look, deja vu. It's all happened before. I had an interesting case with a lady. The lady, she came to me and said, I think I've been abducted. I said, why? She says, well, I was driving home one night, got a set of lights, looked up, big semi bearing down on me, and next minute I got home at 2:45 in the morning. My husband's pacing back and forth. He was ropeable. I was due home at 11 o'clock, 4 hours of missing time. So I must have been abducted. I said, what's an assumption? Let's find what's happening. Get on the table. Her spirit took us straight back into deja vu, where it's all happened before. She got to a set of lights, meh, looks up, big semi, bang, it hits her. It took 4 hours for her to die in the deja vu cycle of time. Everything repeats itself. This time round, got the set of lights, meh, looked up, instant recall, and she just let go. The moment she let go, time instantly looped itself and put her outside the 4 hours. New time track. I looked at that and I thought, oh my God, okay, that explains a lot.
When you say like a time track, do you mean like a parallel? We're talking about a parallel?
Deja vu.
Yeah.
Just visualize a spring moving through time, a spring. Okay, everything's going in cycles of time. On the spring, we look at the last time around at the peak of the spring, and everything that 360-degree cycle is deja vu. It's all happened before. What happened before is happening right now. There's nothing new under the sun. It's happened before. And what's happening now and what's happened in the past is going to happen in the future cycle of time. Unless we in the present change the past, loop time, and create a new time track outside time for the future. That then changes the future cycle of time. Do you understand?
I think so.
So with her, the spirit took me straight back into deja vu where it's happened before. The last time she was killed. This time round, at instant recall at that moment of time she let go. Time looped itself and put her outside the 4 hours. New time track.
I had something similar. And this
There's
is
quite
why,
a few people, yes.
Yeah. I was driving. Oh, well, I was the passenger. I was on an on-ramp onto a freeway.
Yep.
Just gone through a roundabout, onto the on-ramp, coming onto the freeway, and then suddenly I'm approaching the roundabout again. And
Time loop.
was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And the driver and I looked at each other and he went pale. Yeah. So I knew he registered it, but he didn't want to talk about it.
Instant time loop.
And again, I think I lost about 3 hours.
Yep. I'd say there would have been, I'd say last time round, there's a good chance there was a major accident and you were killed at that moment of time. Spirit and you instantly changed time. Time looped itself and puts you outside time. There's a case, I've got a video here in Russia at a set of lights. The car goes through, next minute from nowhere, a car comes out the front of the car from nowhere. It's as if time has just continued on the journey, of time. And we're looking today and we're seeing, like, I've had hundreds of clients over the years that say, should be dead, so what happened? And I'm finding these time loops. Now, when we go and work with a client, we just take it to another level. When I take you back in time and you see what you did in the past that's affecting you in the present, and the moment you create 360 degrees and loop time on itself and put you outside time, you're on a new time track and time changes. It's exactly the same thing, only it's taken to another level of a physical world of reality where we can physically change time. Remember, you're a hologram, so the fractal hologram is only making changes to the hologram of the physical reality.
Okay, I think I get it. I'm going to be thinking about this for quite a while. We've only got about 20 minutes left, so I wanted to talk a little bit and focus on how people can currently stay in 0 point, get to 0 point, communicate with spirit, protect themselves. Because I do believe that holographic kinesiology is ultimately incredibly
kinetics. Sorry, it's not kinesiology.
It's ultimately very empowering. Because I think once we understand just how powerful our spirit is, that it changes the game completely. But all of this talk about energies and entities and beings and serpents and what it can sound pretty scary. How does someone truly understand and get into 0 point and know that they're there? Trust that they're talking to spirit and protect themselves.
Okay. The first thing is, if you need protection, you haven't got it.
Yeah, okay.
When you understand how the universe works and its laws, that alone, you don't, through your free will choice, enter these games of others. Most people especially prisoners, are stuck in dimensions of time by their action and reaction, action, reaction. Every time you react to another, you're reacting to someone else's reality. The moment you look at that, take a big breath and say, I don't need that anymore, blow it off the time track, clear it. I want to come back to point zero. Come back to point zero and realise at point zero, you and your spirit can actually be as one. And only at point zero can you move forward in time. While you're in action and reaction, you're swinging in the pendulum back and forth, and you can't move forward in time because it's stopping you from moving forward. You're stuck in time. This is where the prisoners, I sat in the court cases for 8 weeks. I don't know, Your Honour, I keep doing the same thing over and over. They're stuck in time. The spirit's talking to you, it's telling you. So what happens is that while you're in action and reaction, let go of the action, let go of the reaction, let go of other people's realities. You don't have to react to their realities. Stay at point zero. At point zero, you are the observer, and you're observing the games for what they truly are. Games. So it's right now is allow the audience out there, allow the spirit of all those people in the audience to stop and just awaken from its amnesia. Realise you came into a vehicle that's been genetically modified, so purely simply you don't remember who you are because the amnesia in it. Awaken from who you are. Remember who you are. And stay at that point zero. When you and your spirit align, you're not going to react to other people's realities anymore. And when you align, listen to your spirit. Thank it. Every day does something positive. Thank it. It'll do things for you. It's not going to have a conversation. This is one of the things people out there think it's going to have a big conversation with you. No. There's 4 parts talking to me on the table. I've got the ego, all the headspace. I've got the soul. I remember all the experiences. I've got the spirit, and he'll only be in that moment of time where the experience took place. They've got all the life forms trying to justify their existence to get you off track. Just acknowledge spirit wants. Tell her what you want and let go of it. Don't have any attachment to it. And as you do that, you'll find that you at point zero will be able to observe all the games around you taking place, but not entering those games or participating in those games.
Just want to say to anybody in the chat room, if you have a question, now's the time to ask. And one question that's come through is, can you experience 2 timelines simultaneously?
Interesting. Because you can't be in 2 dimensions at once. But, and I say but, I saw a very interesting video coming from Europe. And I saw this truck in a tunnel, just going along by itself merrily on the way, and all of a sudden this truck collides with itself, as if 2 dimensions merge in the physical world of reality. The same truck collided with itself, yet there's no truck in front of it, beside it, anywhere else. Next minute it's collided with itself, and both trucks are equal opposites on the road upside down, showing that 2 dimensions have merged at the one moment of time. There's been a crossover of time.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly have a look at the questions. Whoever the person who asked that question said that happened to me, in terms of experiencing 2 at the same time. My old car collided with my new car. I drove right through it.
Yes, okay. It's understandable. Old car. You hear that?
Her old car collided with her new car and drove right through it.
The old car collided with the new car and drove right through it. Yeah.
Okay, Linda, you're going to have to share that story. That sounds amazing. So if deja vu is a memory.
No, deja vu is a reality of the cycle of the Earth cycle that we're in, where everything happened before and is now happening again, because it's a spring. Yeah, it's a bit like, look, if you take 240 copper wires, you get 240 volt. Wire 120 volts. It's a reflection of itself through time and space. And the dimension of the past is it's already happened before, and it's going to happen again, but we have the ability to make variables to these outcomes. Now, when we become aware of this, then we can change time to create new outcomes for the future. You see, everything out there that's taking place is linked to a dimension of time. Sometimes those things took place thousands and thousands of years ago, but you're still stuck in that dimension thousands of years ago that keeps repeating through time because you've never looked at it. The moment we can acknowledge it and let go of it, then it is no longer going to repeat through time and we can move on. Sometimes it can be as simple as realising, okay, this keeps happening all my life. I've had it. No more. I don't want any more. That's it. Whatever I've done, I deserve, I acknowledge whatever I've done. I acknowledge that I've done something. I need to learn the lesson. Spirit, I've learnt this lesson. I don't like it anymore. Thank you very much. Change it. And the Spirit's liable to say, okay. It can be that simple. We don't have to have big dramas. The universe is very simple in the way it lays itself. As long as we've learnt, because whatever we've done is affecting other dimensions that we're living in with other beings in our dimension. And this is why we were talking about earlier, beings in other dimensions are governed by the laws of their dimension. If they come into our dimension, they're governed by the laws of our dimension. And this is our dimension. We have the rights to this dimension. It's only what we don't have the understanding of in this dimension.
It struck me several months ago that when I look at nature and I look at this planet and I look at humanity, there is a symbiotic relationship.
That's
about 85%, 85 to 90% of the planet and the way nature works is symbiotic. And even when it is one creature devouring another, it's always about balance. And yet there is this parasitic element that is in a minority in nature. They're within us, they're in the earth, they're in our systems and structures. And even though it's a minority, it's also in some ways the most powerful. And it doesn't seem, to me, it is like two completely different operating systems that have been merged. That the two, they just don't match. They just don't, I don't even know how to find the words for this. But it's the symbiotic balance in nature that seems to be the way this dimension should operate.
That's because in nature, everything in nature is linked to this universe. Everything's communicating with everything else. All the trees are in total communication with each other. And they pass, we brought some ancient trees in once, 600-700-year-old trees from ancient forests. And it says we're aware of everything. We pick up everything through our leaves and pass them down the stems into the earth. We are the consciousness of the earth. So as everything is known out there, there's a link between it all. But it's when other forces have actually come into this dimension from other dimensions that are manipulating this dimension for their own agenda to try and change this dimension. And that's what's going on today. I even look at the chemtrails out there today and say, well, not just are they putting the toxins and rubbish in the atmosphere that's affecting us, but are they trying to change the physical vehicle so in the next cycle of time the beings that come through have an atmosphere they can survive in?
Yes, I'm inclined to think so.
But remember, we don't have to be in that reality either. We don't have to be in that reality, you see?
No.
We can create our own reality and be in our own reality other than that reality.
Are you familiar with the work of Dolores Cannon and QHHT?
A bit of it, but not fully. I mean, Dolores Cannon, with hypnosis, hypnosis is an area, as I said in the early days, doing mind magic, and it can create many delusions and illusions, and you can create what you want, and you can create, and you can change people's reality by changing the soul and reprogramming the soul if you want. Dolores Cannon, in her teachings, didn't believe in entities or these other forces. Well, maybe it's because she never came up across them, you see.
Are you familiar with her concept of, which she says she gathered the information just through sessions, as I guess as you've done too, but of the two earths, the split earths?
I haven't gone into her research in that area, what she found there, but when you're dealing with clients, you've got to also remember two things. Who's talking? Am I doing the headspace? Am I doing the soul? Am I doing the spirit? Am I doing with life forms? Who's talking out of this body in this moment of time? Look, I had a case the other day with this lady. This is a really good case to understand. This woman come in, the first thing she said, I had an accident when I was 14. I don't remember anything. Don't remember my mother. I don't remember her life. I don't remember anything. I started working on it and I got this being talking out of her. It's talking out. I came here and I took this body to make changes because this earth's a prison and so this was 15, 20 minutes as rampant and raving. And I know I'm going to invade here in the body, but I was really having trouble trying to access the invader. So I put it all aside and I went straight back to 14, what happened at 14. She's on a bicycle at 14. She has an accident and she hits her head and she's in a coma. She gets to the hospital, got her in an induced coma. And while she's in induced coma, this being enters. It's taken over since she was 14, totally taken over her body. It's talking out of her full on. Once I found where it came in at 14, then I went in, closed off the wormhole, the dimension, changed time. Then I went in and took the thing out. And then all of a sudden she remembers her mother, she remembers her past, she remembers everything. She had absolutely no memory at all from 14 because this being was totally running her body from that day on. Just shows how other forces can manipulate and who's talking out of the body. That's the question.
I have a girlfriend who has absolutely no memory up to the age of 11 and was told by her mother that up to that age she was an angel, you know, a very special child. And then at the age of 11 went off, just changed, completely changed, went off the rails.
Yeah, well, the angel might have taken over.
That's one way of looking at it.
My thing with a case like that is we would go straight back to where spirit takes us to, and it would show us a dimension, and we'd unfold time and space in that dimension. We'd clear anything that came into that dimension. And then usually what happened is she's back in control again.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, these beings are pretty powerful when they do take over bodies.
I'm sure. Yeah. I know you haven't seen the heads doing 360 and spewing green slime, but I'm sure it's up there.
Listen, I had a lady come in from France who's only 22 with a husband. She's on my table because no one in France could help her. She came out here, and next minute she physically metamorphed on my table. Instead of having a 22-year-old woman, an 87-year-old Chinese grandmother curled up speaking to me in Chinese. I said, Spirit, send her being back through time and space, according to fit invasion of this force. And she said, bang, she's sitting up. I'm a Roman Catholic. Reincarnation doesn't exist. And I said, well, these metamorphosis, but you're doing it. Come back in 2 weeks' time, I'll sorry, get one of my students, well, they don't have any beliefs and assumptions. Because while you have an assumption and belief, your assumption and belief will override your spirit because you believe it to be. So how can spirit show you where somebody's coming from? How can it make changes if your belief system can override you?
Okay.
And, of course, we've had other beings sitting up, hissing and spitting out of the body at times, and, you know, I've been standing up, my arms up in the air, hanging onto a body that's taken off. I'm not kidding, 6 feet into the air, you know. Someone's sold in me, I'm still hanging on to it. Back down the bed, we're going to take you out. Big entity, you know. Some of the stuff comes through on bodies at the table. They don't want to leave. Then there's a battle and a half will take place on the table.
Have you ever been scared?
No, not
has anything ever really frightened you?
Not in the slightest. I'm fully aware that, you know, this is our dimension. We control over it. They're in my game. We're going to deal with them. They're panicking. They're trying to throw us off, you know, because they want the body and we're not going to get it. That's it.
Anything you haven't been able to get rid of?
No, clear them all. It's understand to apply the mass and geometry of what takes place, how to trap them in your game, and therefore you can deal with them in your game. It is that simple. It is that simple. Our world is very simple. The Aboriginal culture knew all these areas. They knew all these things for thousands of years. They dealt with it. You know, to me, it's just part of the knowingness. And the Aboriginal people I'm training, you know, they're fully aware of this. That's the old ways. This is the way it was taught, you know.
Can I ask, once someone's come and done a workshop with you, or the training for the first week, how qualified are they really to go in the field at that point? Or does it take years to get to?
My thing is we teach them all the keys. My thing is practice on your friends. come back another time when we do it again, and we only charge our students $50 to repeat a day. With that, the tumblers fall into place of what they've learned once they've been out had to practice, falls into place. They pick up so much more. Look, some of my students come back every single time. And as they come back, once they learn it, then we bring them up to assist. They just assist with the other students, and they learn all the time because we're upgrading all the time. We're finding new things all the time. It's constantly, like every time I teach, I've been given another key constantly. And, you know, it's so fast and acceleration of what we're doing. You know, when we first started, you know, it's child's play. And now where we are today, my God, we're finding new areas that we haven't even, never been looked at. We can find areas, I say, look, 50 years in the future, my students, as they continue on with this, they're going to take us to a whole new area. They're going to find areas that, you know, we just can't imagine that exist. You're going to find how reality really takes place, and we can change events in reality, which we're doing now. But we're given keys constantly, and we try, so well, let's just go and ask the Spirit. We ask it, and we find it can actually change reality.
We really are truly powerful manifestors, aren't we?
Oh, yeah. That's what they're petrified of. They are petrified of our spirit.
Well, that's why they started birth, to traumatise us, doesn't it?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, just a couple of last questions before we have to sign off here. Where is it? Oh, they did. Where'd they go? What can we learn from our dreams?
I have no idea. What I mean by that is dreams cover so many areas. If you've had a problem during the day, then that comes through in dream form. If you go in dream form and you go out into the ether, and communicate with other animals, other spirits in the dream form. If you've had something you've been doing that day and it's bothering you, it can go up in the dream form. Look, dreams cover so many areas. I don't specifically look at any one thing in the dream form. Okay. It's independent.
Can we? Oh, where was it? Can we block chemtrails, inoculations, etc.?
Well, I have found that when you talk to the spirit, your spirit, and you tell your spirit what you want, then it can make changes to nearly anything. It's here for you. It's giving you exactly what you wanted, except for one thing. You haven't been telling it what you really wanted. It's just been giving you what the soul has been programmed, so it thinks that's what you want because you're hanging on to it and you never told it not to. So if we go and tell spirit, okay, we see this in the atmosphere, if it lands on my skin, the soul will automatically take it on. That's normal. But if we tell the spirit not to take it on, then it says, okay, and it won't take it on, it'll have an effect.
Okay.
That's the beauty. When you start to work with our spirit, it is the essence, it is powerful, and it can make changes.
Beautiful. Okay, Lisa, good ETs. No, not to enter the game, but bad ETs to pretend to be good ET or to pretend to be good guys. What is the take on all these ETs?
Well, you got three lots of dimensions we're dealing with. We're doing extraterrestrials, we're doing extra dimensionals, and we're doing interdimensional. The interdimensionals have an agenda, and their agenda is, I want your body. Thank you very much for the future cycles of time. So they're all invaders. Watch this. If you're a more advanced race or another dimension, and you're aware of all the dimensions because you've been around for millions of years, which a lot of them have, well, there's no way in the world you're going to enter the game of another, because then you become trapped in the game. So these positive beings aren't going to enter this game, but those that do enter the game, they have an agenda. They want your body. As simple as that. So the good guys, I believe, are off planet observing and watching the game, and they won't interfere. The second thing is with the good guys is they realise that you can't interfere with the evolvement and the evolution of a species. The moment you interfere, what happens when we interfere with the evolvement of a species? We end up wiping out the species.
It's like the story of the butterfly.
Yeah.
The story of the butterfly coming out of the cocoon. If you help it come out of the cocoon, you've actually,
yeah, not really. Yeah. Yeah, and in the involvement of this here, man has to evolve his own pace. This is where people are all talking about the ascension, everybody ascending at the same time. No, they're not going to. Like it or not, each one of us is responsible for our own thought, word, deed, and action. And every one of us is evolving at a different pace and different rate.
Yeah.
It's like if you try to take somebody too far ahead of where they're meant to be, they end up having a mental breakdown. So these beings can only evolve ready for the stages of the next evolution when they're ready. And it's no use people going out. I hear people out say, "Oh, I've cleared all my stuff and I'm ready to evolve and I'm not going to come back again." Well, I've got news for you. If you think you have, there's a good chance you haven't.
So, have you ever actually had contact with via, through one of the people on the table, what you would call a good ET? Or they just don't? You can't even get in touch with them because they're so out of the game.
No. Hey, listen, I've had hybrids on my table. I'm talking about half human, half alien beings on my table at times. And we did 6 months of research with one of them. They were around her all the time, and we did 6 months of research with these beings. And in the middle of one day, in the middle of the research, as they're communicating through her, the body's thrown into mass contortions and screaming on the table, and massive draconian come by, just jumped in. We had to take him out. But I had one in from England. I had two in one from Europe, one from England. They were both partners. And the moment the guy walked into one, look at him, he's not from here. You could tell. Sure enough on the table, no, he's not from here. He's from somewhere totally different. And she's on the table. I thought she's a normal-looking woman on the table. But as we go to access the stuff, okay, up you come. Next minute, her tongue came out over 6 inches long. You should have seen it. It was down here, black purple like a lizard's.
But a good what you would call a good ET?
No, I don't believe there's any good ETs that are going to interfere in this game. People may channel some of the good ETs, but again, how do you know it's a good ET you're going to be channeling? Because remember, the things that have come through, they want their own agenda. They want you. But there may be ones that can be channeled out there that may have some good advice on certain levels at times. But anything that comes into your field and you let in has its own agenda. It's now trapped in this game, like it or not. It wants the vehicle. As I said, most of the good ETs I find off-planet, in the extraterrestrial world, not the interdimensional world. And there's a difference between them all.
We've got a lot of people on the planet right now who have totally associated themselves with a particular ET race. The Syrians. Mm-hmm. I'm an Arcturian, I'm a Palladian, I'm a whatever.
How do they know? Yeah, look, this is it. This is where you get down to assumptions of belief. People assume to be something. Whatever you assume to be, you believe it to be. You believe in your own reality. Doesn't mean it is.
Well, we've all been told through the New Age movement that it's so much better to be something other than human.
Yeah, but hang on. Who set up the New Age movement?
Bill, I know.
They did like they set up the churches.
Yeah, I know. But it's so disempowering.
The fact is you're a human and you're a human being. You're meant to be here on this planet as a human being. You're meant to be moving through this dimension, dealing with what you need to deal with so you can learn, so you can move on. If you want to be somewhere else, you don't have to keep coming back until eventually you get it right. My thing is you're slow learners and you've got fast learners. If you want to be a slow learner, catch you next time around. If you want to be a fast learner, get on, get the job done and move on.
The question's just come up. Are there no other 3D bodies to take than ours? Or, why are ours so prized, our vehicles?
Because our vehicle is generally engineered in the first place. It is a new molecular mortal structure in this dimension. We're like a biological computer. I got to tell this one here, talk about biological computer. This takes me to another level the other day. And I saw there's a documentary out there on Volvo. And Volvo, the new computer in Volvo, it can park its car, think for itself. So they're out there and they're testing, all the cameramen are set up, and the car stops, it thinks for itself, and then it runs over the cameramen and the reporters because it wasn't programmed not to run over humans. You had to pay extra money to get it to program not to run over humans. That's how smart the cars are getting nowadays. If it doesn't have the program, Well, that's to me is the same as the soul. The soul's programmed into a way of thinking. It's only the program it knows.
Oh, I don't know whether to laugh or cry over that.
It just takes you to another level of understanding. Where are we going with vehicles that can think for themselves and make decisions for themselves? They're just like a human that's making decisions for itself. But it's also programmed. The soul is so easy to program.
Yeah, clearly. And there are so many measures being used to do so.
Yeah. And remember, you've got to take one step further, and that is that it is only a vehicle. In other words, the drivers that move into the vehicle have got a vehicle in this molecular mortal world to travel in and to experience in. That's why they want the bodies.
Well, I can't have mine. Not anymore. I do not consent. Steve, it's been an absolutely mind-boggling pleasure to talk to you. As I said, I am having a session with James in a couple of weeks and look forward to doing whatever training and whoever's training in Sydney when it comes up.
Okay.
Has the website been updated with a new schedule?
No. It'll be done in another week. I'll be putting them up and possibly putting the dates up for the next couple of months. But there's a lot behind the scene to organise before we get dates. You've got to get locations. There's so much more to do. And I've got the Sunshine Coast, I think first. I've got Adelaide, then I've got the Sydney, I've got the Melbourne, I've got New Zealand. I've got so many areas to try and lock in and lay it all out and plan it all beforehand. So, but it will be starting to get done the next week. I've been overseas and I haven't had a break yet, so I was trying to have most of June off if I can to just catch up, because I haven't stopped for over a year. It's been non-stop, constantly, and I need to have I need to go fishing, spend a day, bit of a break.
Yeah, you've deserved it. I think you certainly earned it over the last 40 years.
40. Well, it's actually 50 years research now of doing this. But look, it still amazes me at some of the areas we're getting to, and it really teaches you to have faith in your spirit, have faith in the spirit of the person that's talking. Listen to it. It's giving you keys. It gives you all these little keys. Sometimes students at first don't pick up on those keys, but as we come, I teach. Listen to it. It came out. It said that word. Why did it give me this word? It gave me a word for a reason. It's trying to show you. Let's see where it takes us. And we're taking that word, takes you a whole new dimension of what's actually happening with the person. Yeah.
If we just understood and really knew one thing, which is that everything is alive.
That's correct.
And that spirit is in everything. Our world would change in an instant.
Yep. We could change so much, and we could have a better world, because, as I said, thoughts are nothingness. They're invisible. But look what man's created for thoughts. If we were to change those thoughts into positive thoughts, to positive changes for a positive future, we could have so many people that aren't. Instead of government spending millions and millions and millions of dollars and locking people up because they don't understand the dimensions they're in and what's going on, we'd have people cleared. Instead of children's hospital that are suffering when they've got trauma come through from the past, they could be cleared. Instead of the prisoners in the prison repeating over and over, they could all be cleared. Instead of the soldiers suffering mental trauma, because what happens is if you kill an animal or a human, before its time without its permission, you violate law. And because you destroy his vehicle, he has a right to your vehicle, so he can jump into your vehicle. We've had people with animal spirits barking like a dog, plucking like a chicken. We bring up the animal spirit, take them out, no more barking like a dog or plucking like a chicken, because it might have been 300 years ago they killed the animal, but the sleeper has been activated. Souls of war. I've had spirits of Viet Cong speaking Vietnamese out of the body 40 years after the Vietnam War. I had a soldier in Iraq recently. He fired a mortar in a village. He's on trauma leave. 3 spirits in him. Bring him up. They were in the house that he hit. Took him out. No more trauma. I've had soldiers in Somalia. I've had soldiers from Afghanistan. You've got to understand these dimensions of what's going on.
We're not going to see the changes in the hospitals or in the mental institutions or the prisons or with the vets. We're not going to see those changes as long as the people who are in control of the system are the people that are in control and with their agenda. So how do we...
It only takes one person to make a change. And start getting onto the boards, start getting onto these meetings, start getting these people that are running these groups, start getting onto those groups, start getting on, we can make decisions in mental health to make changes to it. When people start to get on, they want changes, then they've got to have changes because it's coming from that level. Governments put bodies together. Mental health itself has a board of people, the same as suicide prevention. You've got to get in and people have to get onto these boards and start to make a change. All these structures out there you've got with people with different illnesses. Look at all the companies that are structured to get donations. What do they do with their donations? They only have to donate 10% of that, of course, to whatever the structure is they've got. And the rest they can keep for themselves. Thank you very much for their companies. You know, the whole structure itself, it's chaotic in the way it's designed. It's not meant to assist people, not in the slightest. But they keep getting donations. What do they do with the money? Like I mentioned, so many other organisations out there that have got millions and millions and millions every year. What do they do with the money? What research have they done other than down the same road?
It's funny, you've just brought up a conversation I had not that long ago, which was about the political system. Because as you know, in Australia, you know, if you're running, you have to get, at election time, you have to be given a certain amount of airtime, mainstream airtime, even if it is just on the ABC. But why not run? Why not create a political party? Why not run so that you're given that mainstream airtime and just use it as the platform to speak to the mainstream audiences? And it does seem like we have to actually get up off our asses and start infiltrating these boards, infiltrating government, we have to infiltrate from the ground up.
That's correct. And it's the only way you can do it. And remember, it only takes one person to make a change. One person with determinism and with the universal laws behind them, and it will push them forward. When you align yourself with this universe and its laws, it will work with you and your spirit will work with you. If you're tense right, then you've got the universe behind you and it's going to be pushing you all the way. It's like a wave. You're going to be riding it.
You got me thinking about some things now. All right. Steve, thank you so much. This has been a huge pleasure for me, as I said, and I'm so looking forward to getting more and more involved.
Great. I'm looking forward to catching up with you when we do.
Yeah, awesome. I hope you're doing Sydney. So I'll see you there if you are.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you really had to make a difference on a large scale with minimal resources, how would you go about it? Have you ever dared to dream of doing that which seems impossible? On a planet steeped with corruption and destruction, the question beckons, how do we change it? Media has a far-reaching impact on people and has been used to manipulate humanity into our current destructive patterns. In order to affect people into moving into constructive patterns of behavior, we need to construct a new paradigm of media. Conscious Consumer Network has been created with the explicit intention of giving the amazing truth-seeking, solutions-orientated, alternative media a place to fully realize their true potential, with a cutting-edge, high-tech professional media platform being made available to use at no cost to the broadcaster. In turn, some of the greatest freedom-seeking hearts and souls of our time have realized the true potential of what has been created and have come together to provide their insight and inspiration on CCN. Conscious Consumer Network has become a unique, interactive information and educational network which provides a free-to-view, live-stream, ultra-high-definition channel to the world and features 25 live shows a week and growing with the addition of multiple language broadcasts. CCN has features comparable with mainstream media, such as being able to pause and rewind broadcasts whilst being live streamed. Catch up on missed or previous broadcasts, now available from CCN High Definition Downloads. You can now purchase a high definition download of your favorite CCN show from ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a monthly pledger. This can be done with a monthly pledge of €10, which will allow you unlimited access to CCN's high definition downloads, which hosts a back catalogue of over 250 shows which have been aired since the launch of CCN on the 1st of January 2015. In order to keep CCN free of corporate sponsorship and advertising, CCN has launched the Pledge 300 campaign. This is a realistic goal with the hopes of securing a minimum of 300 people who will each pledge €10 a month. With this number, we can continue to grow and operate and potentially expand into a second foreign language channel. Without it, CCN will simply not be able to function without succumbing to corporate sponsorship and advertising. Help keep alternative media in the hands of the people. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.